On the 1st of September, I jumped into Starfield and happily spent dozens of hours playing the game within the first few days. Starfield was everything I had wanted it to be and more, but initial looks can be deceiving. And though there's no doubt that Starfield is a great game, 100 hours later, I'm left with some sourness. So let's review Starfield 100 hours on and see if perhaps it's the right game for you. Oh, and with me not reaching the end game yet, I'll not be mentioning any spoilers or going into details about what New Game Plus is. Now, it's hard to start with a game as big as Starfield. This sci-fi epic RPG leaves you in the controls of a starship to pursue whatever future you want. And you can do exactly that, whether you want to become a pirate, work for the Freestar Rangers, or follow the main mission as a member of Constellation. Should you wish, you can actually skip all of the main quests entirely and build your own outpost, automating resources to sell. You can own your own home or build and capture enemy ships. And like all epic RPGs from Bethesda, such as the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series, this freedom is what makes the devs stand out. Well, that and the notorious bugs, which were surprisingly infrequent for the first few days of playing. But it's also a big problem with Starfield, which we'll cover later. One of the biggest concerns was the epic size of the Starfield universe, with over 100 star systems featuring over 1,000 planets to go and explore. Could they even pull off a living, breathing world on that scale? How would exploration be made interesting, and would it even be worth exploring? Firstly, there are definitely reasons to explore, whether you're wanting to make some cash by selling your scans to a buyer or pilfering from local hotspots for loot. Furthermore, if, like myself, you want to build an industrial outpost, automating the production of various items, then yes, you'll want to prospect not only the various planets, but individual landing spots within a planet, to find a spot that has multiple resources and biomes. Now, upon landing, there will be various points of interest that have been pre-made in this procedurally generated landscape. From my experience, there's been quite a wide variety of different structures and outposts out there, but I will mention on the first planet that I ever encountered, I visited 3 collapsed mines, each identical to the next. This was a huge disappointment at the time, but I have to stress that I haven't had this happen to me since. Regardless of my enjoyment exploring planets, I do feel that planetary exploration needs some tweaks. Firstly, we need to have some rideable vehicles on the surface. Having to walk 1 kilometer to explore a trait is often a 10-minute walk, becoming a mild annoyance. Failing vehicles, let us at least choose to relocate our ship to another area in the local map. This is my second complaint, that the map itself needs a total overhaul, featuring the lay of the land and points of interest, and look much more detailed. We don't even have maps in cities at the moment, and this feels like a total oversight from the team. But I found overall that when it comes to exploring, scanning the wildlife, the fauna, minerals, it can take time, but in return it offers a relaxing alternative to make money rather than the constant thrills of combat in this game. Speaking of which, I'd go as far as to say that the gunplay in Starfield is miles better than what I've experienced in the Fallout universe. It flows much better, and though the zero-G fighting is a touch frustrating, being knocked back with the recall of various guns, it does look and feel incredibly cool, and I absolutely love disabling and boarding other ships in space. The capturing mechanic of clearing a ship and then claiming the pilot seat to take control of the ship is great fun, although waiting several minutes for engines to repair is pretty frustrating, and in my opinion there should be a switch or a mini game in the ship to repair the engine module, but I guess it does serve me right for disabling their systems. Ship combat is pretty smooth as well across the board, though I do find myself wanting to remap the E key to save me from constantly leaving the combat mid-battle by the slip of my finger. And when it comes to the battles, there's a good variety of different ships, and it's often fun stumbling upon an ambush. But that does lead me to yet another complaint about the game. Space exploration seems very limited to just a dozen or so random encounters, and space exploration doesn't breathe breathe like it does on the planet. And what I mean by that is there's so little going on. Sure, it's space, but this is a game. There's no constant flow of trade ships between Aquila, Sol, and Alpha Centauri. You'll only find real activity in the orbit of big cities, but it just doesn't feel the same as other space sims like Elite Dangerous or even the likes of Freelancer. And I'm really missing that. The other day, I actually spent over an hour just trying to find a single combat encounter, jumping from system to system, and I wouldn't mind it so much, but there's no sense of discovery in space. And that's made worse by the constant load screens, which I get, I'm not opposed to load screens, but they are very frequent in this game. More so than the combat encounters apparently. And yeah, that's down to how the game has been designed, but personally I would have liked the ability to at least fly between planets without loading screens so that you could discover, I don't know, nebulas and the odd ship trading between the settlements or smugglers trying to sneak past the Vanguard. Sure, jumping to a different solar system or down into orbit, I understand having that load screen, even if I prefer being able to manually fly down to the surface like they have on offer in No Man's Sky. I also find that it lacks many space sim features. I'd love for scanning to play a much bigger part in space exploration. Like I was mentioning, the idea of coming across nebulas. Why can't we discover radiation clouds or anomalies that we have to scan? Make me feel that I'm really exploring the unknown reaches of space rather than planets within each system, which quickly gets a little mundane. Hell, what about asteroid mining and prospecting? I'm the kind of guy that enjoys peacefully mining asteroids, and sure, if you want to mine asteroids for a living, you can do in this game, but the resource yield is just so low that even in high level space, it really isn't worthwhile. And that's the same with trading. If you want to trade resources between solar systems with a hulking freight ship, there's really no point. We're left with the freedom to do what we want in this game, but we're not left with the payoff of necessarily playing the game the way we want to. And that feels like a massive miss from Bethesda. This doesn't mean, of course, that I dislike the game. I still very much love it, and I mean that wholeheartedly. It's just there seems to be a lot of small things that over the course of 100 hours have started to add up and skew my opinion of the game. They've also done a lot of things right. The storytelling is great across the main quests, and the world's surrounded by tons of details. The ship designer, though a touch basic, also gives the freedom to build a ship to your own liking within the limitations of the system, and I've got to say I'm really enjoying that. The game is incredibly familiar, which I suppose is no surprise because Bethesda have stuck with what their games are known for and reskinned the universe, but that in itself is also a huge problem. They brought out a new game that promised to be something different, but they've made it play just like previous games. They could have pushed into new territory and made the game outstanding, but I feel that instead they've stuck with what they know will make them money and gone with that. And I'm just left very much hoping that DLCs will bring a lot more to the game and make it that universe that's living that I want. One of the biggest systems that definitely needs overhauling in my mind is the economy. With vast solar systems, we have the opportunity for a real living, breathing economy that responds according to supply and demand. But instead, we're left with this cookie cutter vendor system that leaves you waiting for 48 hours every time a shop runs out of credits. Also, why don't we have a sell all button for the miscellaneous category? There's no use for it. Every time I board a ship, I have to go through every item and sell it individually. I mean, seriously, how is that not a thing? Let me build an outpost where I can produce multiple resources and sell them all in one click for a huge stonking profit, and don't penalize me for selling it all at once. That is the perfect game in my eyes. Oh, and the outpost automation system, though I do enjoy it as well, I feel it's very much a step back from Fallout 4, where we had logic and conveyors. Instead, we get to connect resources to a fabricator with invisible lines, and voila, the item's complete. Even transporting items between outposts could have been more interesting by forcing us to build the ships that transport the resources. That makes it feel more personal to our playthrough and limits our outpost production to the amount of money we have to invest in our ships. It's great that they have an outpost system in place, But again, it leaves me just wanting dedicated DLC to fix this. In their defense, Fallout 4 did have the settlement as part of the vanilla game, and then they released the automation update, I can't remember which one it was, the DLC, and that made the system so much better in my eyes. So perhaps that will happen, but I shouldn't have to review a game based on the DLC or the modding community, which is definitely going to be a big part of this game. And even though we are reviewing the game, I should mention mods. Mods are going to be a massive part of the community and this game. There are already modders out there who are working hard to improve the game. We've got fixes for the inventory and for the user interface. Even shipbuilding, which originally capped us at just 10 ships, has been fixed with various mods, but we shouldn't have to mod a brand new game for these fixes, especially for the bugs which were sparse to begin with. Unfortunately, the more I've played, the bigger the bugs I've encountered. I'm now no longer able to pursue the main story because bugs have stopped the starting of new quests, so I'm waiting for a patch. And with Bethesda being very quiet on that side, I have no idea when a fix will come. So I'm probably going to have to start over. And it's not just the main quest that's been plagued with bugs. Sometimes I'm unable to leave my ship because the front of the ship clips through the base structures, or sometimes I spawn randomly in another settlement with no way to fast travel or leave an invisible ship that I'm somehow inside. Truth be told, the bugs getting progressively worse does leave me worrying about sinking another 100 hours into the game. So yeah, you know what? I'm gonna start over, and I'm going to focus on finishing the main story first before anything else, and perhaps I'll even start with New Game Plus, which I've heard great things about, tying in a great reason to play the game over and over again. But until then, I'm left with giving Starfield a 7 out of 10. It has so much promise and could easily be an 8 or a 9 out of 10 with patches and changes, and I'm excited to see how this game develops. I absolutely love it, but I'm left bewildered by some of the choices Bethesda's made and struggling to play the game how I want to due to these bugs. I'm just hoping it's all patched soon. Funnily enough, immediately after creating the content for this video, Bethesda decided to release a patch which has fixed the majority of the main problems that I had with the main quest line. So I'm able to play the game as I planned now, but I am very excited for what they have to bring in the future and whether that will change my opinion from a 7 out of a 10 to 8 or 9. Time will tell. But guys, do let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Thank you does go to all of our amazing supporters on Patreon, most notably our solo coach patrons, James Owen, Fiveless and Trebor, as well as our Lunas, the Calamity, Ben, Star and That Dude AW, as well as our Blood Moon of the Day, which today is Scooter. Until next time, as always, ciao.